from the very beginning of the fourth day, things were different.
Mr. Jones came into the classroom and closed the curtains and shut the door and locked it. He had a full-time bodyguard that was with him. By now, there were members of the car club who were acting as self-appointed bodyguards, and one of them stood by the door when it was locked. He turned out the lights, drew the curtains, and it was pretty dark in there.
We were kept standing. At this point, he, I believe, expelled a couple people on the concept of performing mock assassinations. I believe they were taken out of the class at that time. And then he changed the whole process on us.
There was a little bit of a slant, a different change in his mood and how he was addressing us.
And you have to remember the class is jam-packed by now. You know, the individual classroom of Mr. Jones, room C3, was just lined with people, sitting in the aisles or standing by the windows, by the bench seats.
He told us that this was not a game. This was not something that just our class was in, but that teachers all over the nation were doing this in classes, and that we were going to get together and form a third political party in this country.
It is, in fact, a national movement. There's 1,025 other schools doing this right now.
This was happening in San Francisco. He said this is happening in Chicago. This is happening in Philadelphia. This is happening in New York. And because it was working so well, they were going to come out with their party leader the next day.
Class, there's something very important I have to tell you about the wave. Now, the wave is not just a classroom experiment. No, it's much more than that. Across the country, teachers like myself have been recruiting and training a youth brigade to show the rest of the nation how to achieve a better society through discipline, community, action, and pride. Now look what we've accomplished in 2 short weeks in this school alone. If we could change things here, we could change things everywhere.
I kept looking at Ron Jones, and I kept trying to find something in his attitude or demeanor, or a twinkle in the corner of his eye, or something in the way he spoke that would let me know this guy's pulling our leg.
I believed it was possible because there were a lot of other things happening during the 60s, of movements that had gone nationwide.
And in those days, there was no internet, so there was no way to fact check him. And nobody, oddly enough, nobody asked him to prove it either. We trusted him, or at least we weren't in a position to make waves.
Oddly enough, there was a Time magazine or some magazine that happened to have this thing called the third wave.
One of my fellow classmates from the back said, "Mr. Jones, what about this?" And it was a color ad, and it said, "The third wave is coming."
And I reached over and grabbed it, and I said, "And this is the signal of action."
Bart, you see this? You see it?
Mr. Ross, can I show you something?
Yes, Robert, what is it?
Mr. Ross, what does it mean? It's a secret code, isn't it? The wave is upon us. Robert, you're right.
That was my magazine. I brought that in. It was a double page. There's some pictures on the bottom. There's something about third wave, and it kind of crossed the scene boundary in the middle.
That kind of helped decide me into the state of thinking this indeed is going to happen.
The trials were held to get the kids out who weren't really serious about it.
Robert, Eric, Brian, please escort these 2 out of the room and see that they stay out.
Amy, please listen to me!
They're lying! Don't listen to him, he's lying!
And those of you who left are the strong ones who will take this student movement forward.
And tomorrow we're going to have a rally and you're going to meet a presidential candidate that's going to explain the purpose of the wave, and this is our new leader, and we're going to rise up together and change the world.
He said he wanted all of us to report the next day at noon to room H1, which was a big assembly hall. And on closed-circuit TV,
The National Party leader would come out on a limb and cut it off and announce the new student movement.
At 5 o'clock, there will be a rally in the auditorium for WAVE members only. During the rally, a prominent political figure will reveal himself to all of you as our national leader. He will appear on television, and he will announce the formation of a nationwide WAVE youth program. Now, I want every single member of the WAVE to attend the rally. Each member of this class is personally responsible for a record turnout, and make sure that no one but loyal WAVE members are allowed in.
Mr. Jones then abruptly left the room, left us all alone in the dark. I remember one student jumping up. It was a girl, I think, and she was telling everybody to not go, that this was wrong.
When he told us this was a real thing, a real youth movement, I don't remember any more about this youth movement, what it was supposed to be, but the fact that it was supposedly real, if this was how it was being run, I didn't want any part of it.
And I don't think anybody joined her. And I kind of looked around out of the corner of my eye, and I saw that everybody else was just ignoring her and staring straight ahead, which had a lot, forced me, to sort of keep going along with everybody and not, disband at this point.
When Ron Jones told us this was going to happen, he gave us a couple conditions. And the conditions were that we were not to talk about this upcoming assembly or that the third wave was a real political group. We were not to talk about that with anyone.
One of the rumors was that a kid had gone to their counselor and complained about it, and the counselor had turned them in to Jones and they'd been exiled. We never know who the student was, but the rumor was very effective at keeping us at bay.
I didn't let anybody know that I had gone to the counselor to speak with my mother, because I didn't know who had that connection with Ron, and they might say, oh, she knows, and so make sure she doesn't go to the assembly.
When we left that class that day, I and friends of mine were flabbergasted. My world had changed.
He was such a beloved, charismatic teacher. To have him say that this was a real thing, I was, I don't think I've ever felt so betrayed in my life. And I remember at that time feeling very frightened and very helpless, and like, what could we do? Was there anything that could be done? And I remember talking to Mark a great deal about, we were sort of comparing notes about what was going on, and was there something we could do? And I didn't know. I felt really, wow, this was bigger stuff than I knew how to handle.
The group had come together because of their disenchantment with our country after President Kennedy's death. Now, all the hopes that he had, and we had as a nation through the Peace Corps and development and civil rights, and you're saying there's now a new party being formed to take a lot of those values and bring them forward again, because they've been lost. And of course, for us, they have been lost, because there was the Vietnam War going on, and there were still civil rights problems, and there were still leaders being assassinated and killed left and right in our country.
Our country was having economic problems, that we could do better economically, that we could do better politically, militarily, that there was a lot of weakness going on with our current administration. We were in a war that nobody wanted to be in, that we were going to find a better way, that we were going to get rid of those people in Washington who were not following what the mass of people wanted to follow. When I was walking in the corridors, I saw a lot of the students, the senior students who were the long-haired radical protesters who had cut classes to come to the third wave. I heard them in the hallway saying, we're going to get the pigs out of Washington. We're going to get us out of Vietnam. That motivated me to want to go to the rally the next day.
That changed the simulation. That changed it to being the stakes were raised and all of a sudden it was bigger than me. And it wasn't something that I could pull out of and have it stop.
We were chosen. We don't want to screw this up for everybody else that, you know, is going to be participating. And that was part of it, too. As it went on, you didn't want to fail because there were all these other people counting on you. You didn't want to be the reason why it didn't progress.